All right, solving trig equations here. In order to solve trig equations, we got to go back over some of our inverse stuff. And I'm going to go a little bit more in detail on our inverse things. We've talked about inverses for sine, cosine, and tangent before. We did that back in one of our previous units. But when we did it, we did not restrict the domains. So what we're going to do when we're solving, we're going to restrict the domains, and that's going to make solving them a little bit easier. And I'll show you why in just a few minutes. But when we're looking at the sine inverse of a problem, when you do sine inverse, you should only look in quadrants 1 and 4 for the answers. Cosine inverse, you should only look in quadrants 1 and 2, and tan inverse, quadrants 1 and 4. So we never, ever look in quadrant 3 when we're doing inverse problems. If you'll recall, when we do inverse problems, this is what they would look like, sine inverse of 1/2. Basically, that means where is the sine equal to 1/2? And before, I had you looking in the entire unit circle, and so you would get 2 answers for this. But now when we're solving, you're only going to get 1 answer for this. And so what we're going to do, here is we're only going to get 1 answer. So instead of looking all around the unit circle for this, I can actually put this in my calculator because the calculator automatically restricts the domain to quadrants 1 and 4. So when I'm doing this problem, I'm going to, first of all, let's do it in degrees. So I'm going to make sure I'm in degree mode. So put in degree mode, and then I'm just going to go second sine, and I'm going to put in 1/2 and close the parentheses, and it gives me 30 degrees. Okay, so now I don't have to look all around my unit circle in order to find that answer because the domain is restricted. Let's do the next one here. Cosine inverse, we're only looking in quadrants 1 and 2, but here again, the calculator is automatically going to give you quadrants 1 and 2. So when we're doing this one, we go second cosine, negative square root 3, and we divide that by 2, and it gives me 150 degrees. So kind of nice. And we can do the same thing for tangent. Square root of 3, and it gives me 60 degrees. So it's kind of nice having the calculator because it automatically restricts those domains. So we're going to use that when we're solving here. All right, so just a few things solving. I'm going to give you just a couple examples, and then we'll do some more in class tomorrow. First of all, it says verify that the x values are solutions. This is very, very easy. This is what a trig equation looks like. 2 sine squared x plus 3 sine x plus 1 equals 0. But I want to verify that these 2 answers are actually solutions to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to plug these in for x and verify that I get 0. Now, this is very, very simple. All I'm going to do is, for the first one here, I'm going to go 2 sine pi over 6 squared plus 3 sine of pi over 6 plus 1. Now, when I type that in my calculator, that should come out to equal 0. Now, the only thing you got to do here is make sure that you're in radian mode because this is a radian problem. So I'm just going to type in 2 sine pi divided by 6 squared plus 3 sine pi divided by 6, and then plus 1, and that comes out to be 3. Okay? So when I'm looking at that, I got my answer to be 3, which means that solution does not work. So this answer does not verify. Okay? All right, and then I'm going to do the same thing for 210, except for 210, I got to put it in radian mode, degree mode. I'm going to go back here and I'll put it in degree mode. All right, and I'm going to do 2 sine of 210 plus 210 squared, 210 squared, all right, plus 3 sine of 210 plus 1. And notice that one does give me 0, so that one is verified. That's all you have to do to verify that they are solutions. All right? Okay, now let me show you how to solve one of these. Okay, example 2 here. And this is what they're going to look like when we solve them. All right, so solve 2 sine of x minus 1 equals 0. 2 things you need to do when you're solving trig equations. The first thing you need to do is isolate the trig function. In other words, get the sine of x by itself. And then once we do that, we can use our inverse properties to solve for x. Okay? So, in looking at this problem here, 2 sine of x minus 1 equals 0. I'm going to add 1. Gives me 2 sine of x equals 1, and then I'm going to divide by 2. And I get the sine of x equal to 1/2. And so what I've done is I've isolated the trig function. And now, as you may remember from some previous things that we've done with inverses, to get rid of sine, I need to do the sine inverse, because then sine inverse and sine will cancel, and I'll just be left with x. But if I do it on this side, I also have to do it on this side of the equation. So I'm going to do the sine inverse of 1/2 as well. So the nice thing is that is exactly what we just did up here at the top. So that really now becomes your calculator problem. And here again, I'm going to keep it in degree mode because I want to do these in degrees. All right, and I'm just going to go second sine of 1/2. And it gives me my answer as 30 degrees. And so we've already restricted that domain. That's what the calculator gives you, is the answer with the domain restricted. So that is your answer. I'll do a few more examples tomorrow in class. Some will be a little bit tougher than this one. This is just a basic example to get you started.